Hello everybody and welcome back to Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I have been out once again raiding the rack and I got myself a beautiful plant to show you today. And as well as that plant, I have other plants I already have in the same family that I want to show you, to show a few different varieties, and those plants are Sansevieria. So let me get this beautiful big tall plant packed out so I can show you what I got. Got to try to get this plastic off first. So now look at this big beauty. Look at the example of this plant that I got. This is a beautiful Sansevieria trifasciata Laurentii. And look at these beautiful big leaves I've got here. A whole big pot with lighter pieces, darker pieces, the yellow veining along the edge of the leaves. Some of these leaves are lighter with the jaggedy texture going on in them, and darker with the same texture, and this beautiful yellow variegation going on along the edge. This is an absolutely amazing example of this plant I found. Look how big it is. Look at it. I'm so excited again. And not just that, there are so many plants in one pot. And the amount of pups coming out of it is just unbelievable. And there's still more space in the pot for more pups. And I can see them coming out all around. This plant is so happy in its nursery pot. And well, it's been doing so well. It's grown into an absolute monster. I am just over the moon happy with this plant. Look at that. Oh, Sansevierias, they are just one of the most beautiful plants out there as well. They are a succulent type plant. They hold a lot of moisture in their leaves. They don't need very much water at all. So they're very easy for people that don't water their plants much or travel a lot or live in different homes or whatever. They are very good at sitting there and not needing water for a long time in between. So you can let this plant dry out and let it stay dry for a while and then water it through and then let this plant dry out. Never too much water at all, because this plant will most definitely rot at the roots if you start watering it too much. If you start letting it sit in water too much in any way, your roots will rot. This is a dry loving plant, but of course it does need water like all other plants now and again, and a good spray off of its leaves to keep them nice and shiny and healthy is also very good too. The soil for these plants, that works is a very aerated type of soil. You can use cactus soil with sand in it, with grit or anything like that, stones. You can even put leca balls in and mix them into a soil. And then if you're making your own soil, I really would suggest using a lot of perlite and sand and things that aerate the soil so that water can drain through quite quickly instead of sitting in the soil. This plant is so happy in its pot. This has got quite a peaty kind of soil actually. It's very dry, and that's just the way this plant loves it. I am not going to be taking this plant out of its nursery pot. It's got plenty of space and it won't need repotting until it tells me it does. And that is when it's filled out with a lot of pups in this pot, or it starts bursting out the side, because that's what these plants do too. They're very, very strong down in their root system area. So when they don't have enough space, they start pushing out of their own pot. But look at the height of this. This is a good, nearly a metre tall as well, this plant. It's going to be absolutely beautiful on the side or on the floor. I'm not exactly sure where I want to put it yet. I just want to love it as it is. I just love all these different leaves. And the feeling of these plants is actually lovely as well, because they're so solid and they're so smooth. They don't really feel real. They feel like they just feel like a plastic plant basically, but they're not. And they grow quick if they're happy. These plants like a lot of bright, indirect, and they can take bright direct light actually, because out in the wild where these come from, they do also grow in bright direct light. So they cope very well with bright indirect light when indoors, and they would actually love that. They will grow quick, they will grow tall, they will grow bushy, they will grow lovely, and if you're lucky, you might even get flowers. They do actually flower in the extreme cases and very good conditions. So yes, they do flower, but most of us won't get to see that. They do survive very well in low light conditions as well, but low light also means an area where there is some filtered light coming through. They obviously can't be just left in a room with no windows. They do need some light, but they cope very well with low light. And if you keep it in a low light position, it won't grow very much. It will just grow slowly. So this big bundle here, if I want to put it in a low light position, that's fine because it's already big and I don't need it to grow too much bigger. But if I get lots more pups, I could easily propagate this plant from the pups and make more pots of plants. But I want to keep this thick, lush effect, so I'm not going to be touching this plant for a long, long time until I really have to. I want it to stay happy like this. It's beautiful. So beautiful. I just want to show another couple of type of Sansevieria I have in our apartment here. I have many, many more Sansevierias at Crystal Cottage. But here I have a few more and I just want to show you them. This is another kind of Sansevieria, it's a kind of cylindrica. And look at that. It's very grass-like. This is an absolutely beautiful plant. I love grasses because I love garden plants too, and I really do love ornamental grasses for the garden. And now I feel like I kind of have a kind of ornamental grass indoors with this plant, this beautiful Sansevieria, and this is throwing off a lot of beautiful young pups all around the edge of this pot. If you can see them here, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, and there's one here. It's pupping all the way around. It's very, very happy. This is also still in its nursery pot. Actually, I did put it in a pot bigger, but I've left it in what it was in, which is coconut fibre. It's actually in a big ball of coconut fibre. So all I did was put it in a little bit bigger pot and I put soil around the edge. And now all the pups are starting to grow out the edge out of that new soil. So this plant is really, really happy as well. I did have this plant for the longest time in our east facing window, northeast facing window. And it's under a shelter outside to our outdoor terrace garden, so it doesn't get a lot of direct light. Some does filter through now and again, and it's been doing very well. But recently I've moved it into the indoor terrace garden, up into a shadier corner, because I need a plant there. So I just hope it's going to carry on being as happy as it is. Otherwise I can just move it back, but it's doing so well. Absolutely beautiful Sansevieria. And that just shows you, look at the different types just in these two. Gorgeous. So, without pricking my face out too much. So, I have another beautiful little Sansevieria here. This is a Sansevieria trifasciata golden honey eye. And look at that. Beautiful leaves on that little plant. It's got golden yellow variegations in it and lovely light green variegations as well as dark. It's very close to this Laurentii in colour and texture and form, but it's also very different. It's this compact form and it grows in a kind of spiral form from a rosette in the middle. So that's why it's different, you can see. I can't tip it up too much because I've got lecker balls in the top of the soil and so forth. But it grows like this in a compact rosette form. And I was so glad that I found this plant. It's very beautiful. So I also have that up on the shelf in my indoor terrace garden in the corner where there isn't that much light. And it seems to be doing fine. So the next Sansevieria I have is this beautiful Sansevieria cylindrica. And look at that. That is an upright forming Sansevieria with these thick leaves growing straight out from the soil, like stakes being stuck into the ground, into the soil, and they just all come up together. There's one in the middle and there's all these ones around the edge, and they're growing taller. They're very stiff, they're very cylindrical, they're beautiful. It's absolutely lovely. And look at this, there's a big difference between these two types of Sansevieria, and that just shows you there are just so many different types of Sansevieria out there. There's something for everyone. This is absolutely beautiful, isn't it? I love it. It's majestic. So that's also standing up on the shelf in that darker corner in the indoor terrace garden here, and it's doing very well. So the last Sansevieria I have to show you here today at the moment is this beauty here. This looks like a starfish, and the whole plant just grows up and up and up and up and up out of one central base point, and there's a new leaf coming up here, and then that will fold to the side and another one will fold over to the other side, and it's very stiff. It's full of moisture. It doesn't need much water at all, but look at that. Isn't it lovely? It's really interesting. It's a really interesting plant. Look at that, even from the side. And that is just completely stiff and solid. Lovely. This one has struggled a little bit since I brought it home. A couple of the leaves started drying and those parts will just be able to be snipped off in the end. Where I actually bought this plant, this was out in a greenhouse where it was quite cold, and I knew that the plant hadn't been there very long, but I thought that it was going to suffer, and quite rightly so. When I brought it home, then some of the leaves started browning off down at the bottom. But now, I've had it for a couple of weeks now, this plant, and well, it started to flush out lovely and green again. It started getting a bit lighter, but now it's flushing out lovely and green. So I know that this plant is acclimatized and it's happy again. And well, all of this is just part of how a plant like this looks. When it grows out of one central base, if anything like this happens, you can't just pull that leaf off. That is part of the whole skeleton of this plant, as you can say. It looks like a skeleton. It's a starfish skeleton. So you can just snip off those bits that brown, and then you just have to appreciate the plant as it is. And I think it's beautiful. These leaves are so big and long, and they'll probably get longer and longer as it grows out. So that's a very, very happy plant. And again, once again, if you look at that against my new beautiful Laurentii, that is very different indeed. So that's all I have for you for this Raid in the Rack video with Sansevieria plants that I found out there all over the place. They're absolutely beautiful. And the one that I came home with today, my beautiful and lovely and tall, gorgeous Sansevieria trifasciata Laurentii. Now that plant in that pot, in that size, I got for 675 Swedish krona. And I thought that was a bargain because there are so many plants in that pot. It's so well established that it's just going to take off and be happy as it is. And I don't have to touch it. I don't have to move it around or anything. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it as it is and enjoy it for as long as I can before I have to do something with it. So go out there and find yourself some beautiful Sansevierias because there are so many types. So all that's left for me to say is thank you very much once again for watching Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson. Please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be uploaded. And I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.